Hi, I'm Michael Patrick O'Hara, and this is Tip of the Iceberg, the international podcast where we investigate the value of dreams from the public's perspective. Today I'm in conversation with psychologist Dr. Kathy Belicki from Madeira, Portugal. Kathy is Professor Emeritus from Brock University in Ontario, Canada. Originally a clinical psychologist, Kathy soon found out her real joy lay in research and teaching and has dedicated most of her life and career to the study of dreams. I first met Kathy over 30 years ago when I interviewed her for my documentary, Donuts, People and Their Dreams. This was a short documentary shot in 18 donut shops across southern Ontario and investigated the public's perspective of dreams, much like this podcast today. Listen in here to this short excerpt from the intro with Kathy and her perspective on some of the individual dreams shared. Enjoy.
Some of my dreams are so unrelated, they're really at odds with the rest of my life because I consider myself just an average person, but then I have these really violent dreams every now and then.
I woke up with the head, I could still see her head in my hand with it all flattened in the shape of the door jamb. It was wild.
It's important to not take dreams literally. It's rare for a dream to be dealing with an exact literal thing that's going on in your life. Usually the images in the dream stand for ideas. So for example, when people have upsetting dreams, common upsetting dreams are violence, dreams of violence, very common. And the nicest people will have violent dreams. In fact, when people have a lot of violent dreams, usually they're kind, gentle souls who are kind and gentle by day, and then they get rid of their anger by night.
When I was younger, I used to dream that a bear was chasing me.
When I was a little boy, I used to dream, recurring dream about a monster chasing me.
So I would go up the rocks, and I'd hide in a little crevice, and he'd be right over top of me saying, "I can see you, I'm going to catch you."
The most common nightmares in North American dreams is of being chased. Sometimes people are afraid that there is actually danger out there in the world that they should be worrying about. And yes, I always want to make sure that that's not the case. But often what we're being chased by is ourselves. A part of ourselves that we're trying to avoid. And a common thing people try to avoid is anger, for example. So often it's a dream about anger and the need to avoid anger. Or you felt need to avoid anger, and anger essentially is a very important emotion. It's an emotion that makes you powerful. If you're uncomfortable with it, it may be that that's what's chasing you, is your need to be angry.
Last time I dreamt about that, it just had its paw on me, and I never dreamt it no more.
Welcome back, Kathy Belicki. I recorded Kathy years ago in 1993 for the documentary Donuts, People and Their Dreams. And I saw Kathy on the Deanie Petty show back in, I guess it was early 93, because I shot in October. And and I thought, oh, she's got such a great light attitude about dreams, and she says such poignant stuff about it. And I really loved your refreshing light attitude, but also deep intellectual concepts and stuff, which was great. Tell us a bit about your trajectory, what you've done in the last 30 years. It's a fascinating study.
Yeah,
Psychology.
It was interesting. Well, and I think I'll probably end up stressing how I really learned that there's sort of different times of life you do different things with dreams. So yeah. I, as a child, I used to, and young adult, right through to young adulthood, I remembered 4 to 6 dreams a night. I was in a family that
really into that. Too.
Yeah, we'd sit at the breakfast table. At nighttime, we'd sit at the supper table and go, "How was your day?" In the morning, we'd sit at the breakfast table and go, "What'd you dream about?" We didn't interpret dreams. We just talked about them.
That's so cool.
And when you pay attention to dreams, just like your prior guest had mentioned too, paying attention to dreams, they come to life. They start to become meaningful. You get the unusual dreams. So when you and I talked back in the 90s, I was in the thick of doing dream research. My dream research career was taking off. I was also a person who lived and breathed my own dreams, and dreams loomed large in my life.
Yeah. And you were a teacher at university
At
too,
Brock
right?
University,
Professor?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
In psychoanalysis or psychology?
psychology, general
Yeah.
psychology.
Right.
Actually, my very favorite course was teaching the introduction to psychology. So yeah, I was at Brock until the last couple of years.
Brock University. Cool.
Yeah, it was a good home for me.
Ontario.
Studied dreams there, and then, but in the 90s, we had this big kerfuffle about what to make of reports of childhood abuse, because at that time, people have forgotten, we used to think only one in a million families had abuse. Like when I was trained as a psychologist, isn't that crazy? And so it was right at that same time that you and I were talking that it was exploding and the society was coming to grips with the fact that there was abuse. And then there was pushback. People didn't want to believe this. Professionals didn't want to believe this. And I had data about nightmares and
almost
trauma,
like the subconscious. I mean, that's like
No
the subconscious, which is
You
really,
got it.
you just deny it, you bury it, and it comes
Yeah.
up in so many different addictions.
Yes, and societies do that too. Then they wonder why there's aggression in society. They wonder why, because we're not processing these things. Yeah, I ended up having to leave. I felt I didn't want to, but I felt I had to leave dream research to take on that battle. And so I ended up studying trauma and using nightmares as a way of understanding trauma for about 10 years, and then got burned out from that. So switched to studying forgiveness. And then at the end of my career at Brock, I had a student come in who was interested in studying grief dreams, and that allowed me to bring the trauma and the dream threads all together. So that was my professional side. On my personal side, there was, as again around, especially through those difficult years in the 90s, I became aware of how much I kind of lived in a dream, whether I was asleep or awake, and to be aware that I was disconnected from the world. Well, first of all, to put to test whether the world was actually worth my attention, because I had a great imagination, but gradually became convinced that I needed to spend more time outside my head in the world. And as a result, started paying much less attention to my dreams, certainly stopped interpreting them and doing much work with them. I mean, they've never, so I tend to remember one dream a night, maybe two. And I now, I find that, again, as long as you pay attention to dreams or share them occasionally with somebody, they stay active.
Yeah, true.
And I just began to really trust that the dream will do what the dream needs to do. And I don't need to spend time thinking about it during the day.
The section I loved in the documentary, you mentioned about how anger manifests in our dreams, our unresolved anger, what have you, and your interpretation of chasing dreams, which is really interesting. How would you say that's shifted over the years, in the last 30 years since we did this? Is there a shift? Or?
There has been a bit of a shift. It was interesting because at that time, we thought that when people had post-traumatic dreams, that the dreams replayed the trauma. And we just shortly thereafter discovered that you can sometimes, often actually, dreams following trauma don't replay. So the wrinkle I would now add to that, I still seem to, it was interesting listening to myself, because it was like I was still beginning to sense it, because I said, yeah, I want to rule out that there isn't something bad going on in their life. But the wrinkle I would now add is I realize that there's a reason why you aren't comfortable with being angry. So when a person is terrified of their own anger or terrified of their own power, two common things. Often there's been experiences that taught them that I don't want to go there. So that could be childhood trauma, that could be just exposure to really angry other people that have taught them that, wow, I never ever want to be angry. So we've come to realize that these really bad dreams sometimes are doing two things at once. You are actually processing an event, a traumatic event. And I use the word trauma, by the way, just to refer to anything that was overwhelming at the time, beyond which you could cope with. And so in that dream, you're both remembering in a way, in a symbolic way, that the events that led you to not want to know that part of yourself anymore. And at the same time, because you've given up anger. So probably the day before something happened that kind of triggered that old memory.
Yeah,
and
there was a
and made you angry, but you
yeah,
don't want
yeah,
to be angry.
yeah,
And the beautiful thing about dreams is that you can then do it in the dream and not do it while you're awake.
yeah. I know that's the best thing. You can work your stuff out in the dream state and not in the physical. How have you applied that to nightmares? I mean, do you should we worry about them? Like you say in the dream, it's just stuff working out, but
Yeah.
we don't even,
Yeah.
should we interpret them? Or
Well, it's interesting because I just had two thoughts hit at once, which always never works well in my brain.
yeah, okay. Stay with one.
So, okay, so let's stay with should you interpret them? Depends on the person. So nightmares, it depends on how you are when you're awake after the nightmare. So one of the things I discovered early on is that we needed to separate the actual having of a nightmare and your reaction to the nightmare after you wake up.
Mhm.
And that when people were coming to us for therapy for nightmares, for the longest times we thought, oh, what we need to do is stop those nightmares. And then I realized, no, we don't. We need to change your attitude towards the nightmares, because I found out there were people having horrible nightmares. And I woke up the next day and sometimes they do, it was a bad dream, and on they went. Other times they got creative with it.
Nice.
I know some of them some artists have used that to create work.
Yeah,
They had a
definitely.
playful attitude.
Yeah,
So I find that if someone is really distressed and upset, they're usually taking the dream too seriously. They're letting it have too big a place in their life, and interpreting it is going to make that worse.
yeah,
Because
and
they're
it's like,
giving
yeah,
Mhm.
it's like challenges in our life and how we see them as, icebergs, or we find a creative way to see the opportunity in them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting is when I began to realize that often behind a nightmare was some deeply upsetting actual things that happened to people. I had to think for a while about, okay, so if I've been a little too lighthearted about nightmares, and I ultimately decided no, that the beauty of the nightmare is that it allows you to be more, when you sort of play with a nightmare, which doesn't mean necessarily interpreting it, it could be just thinking about it, admiring it, and going, oh my goodness, if this was Stephen King, could he ever make a great book out of this? That allows you to start to not be controlled by the trauma.
Yeah.
You're now starting to be back in control of yourself. You're taking a step away from it in a way. And so I realized that sort of being playful about nightmares, and that advice I always had of when you're in the nightmare, and I noticed that your prior guest had the same kind. Don't run, stop, interact. Because if it does, it never went badly for him. I have had it go badly sometimes when I stop and interact, but it's a dream.
Yeah.
It ends, and then you
always
realize,
wake up.
oh, I woke up, and then I realized, oh, that worked out okay.
Nice.
I had a nightmare in the last, it was about probably 5 or 6. We're going to stop having me try to estimate when things happen. Sometime so I'm going to go fast. I was on a healthcare, multidisciplinary healthcare mission to northern Iraq. And we were talking to people who had been through chemical warfare of Saddam Hussein, and hearing horrible stories. And I, that night, just collapsed in bed after we visited a village where the first chemical warfare attack had happened, and had supper with people there and heard the stories. And that night, I just exhausted, fell asleep. I woke up and I opened my eyes, and there was this woman lying in bed beside me, dead, her head on my pillow. And I was, and I forced myself awake.
Yeah.
And I went, whoa, okay, post-traumatic nightmare, okay, blah, blah, blah. Roll over, let's see the spouse. I rolled over, and there was a dead man beside me and one behind him.
Wow.
And I went, oh my God, I'm not awake. I'm still in the dream. And I let out this roar, and I just pushed the corpses, and they rolled off the bed and thunked. And then I woke up. And now I'm looking at the corpses around. There's my husband. He's breathing. Okay. Anybody over the bed? No. And I went, whoa, I've never had, that's what we call a false awakening dream.
Yeah, I've heard of that. That's trippy.
Yeah. And I've never had a false awakening within a false awakening. So I thought, okay, I'm getting up. let's go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom and I see out of the corner of my eye something on the couch. And I look and there's a woman there dead. And then I look around and I see there's corpses there. There's corpses there.
Wow.
And I thought, I'm trapped. How do I wake up? And I'm starting to panic. And then I heard this voice in my head go, stop running. Right. That's what I always tell people to do. Stop running.
Yeah.
And so I kind of, okay, breathe. And then I sort of walked over to the couch, knelt down beside it, reached out this tentative hand and laid it on. It was so real. I could feel the silkiness of the scarf. I could feel the cold body. Wow. And I started talking to her. I said, I'm so sorry what happened to you. I'm so sorry my country didn't do more. I'm so sorry I didn't do more. God bless you. God give you peace.
Beautiful.
And then I woke up. And then I woke up. And then I woke up and was really awake.
That's like the Ho'oponopono, you know, that statement. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. Wow.
And that's so even in a case where there's a real post-traumatic, now it's kind of vicarious trauma. It's not trauma I had experienced directly myself. And there's also an example where the dream didn't replicate the actual event. I've never seen dead bodies, period, let alone in my hotel bedroom. But it was a sort of symbolic working of the trauma I'd experienced listening to these stories. But even in a clear post-traumatic, that advice is sort of just stop running, be with the dream.
That's beautiful.
And then it will pass. And we find that in waking trauma to the extent that you can be with it, it goes faster. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't, right? Sometimes we just have to wake up and force ourselves awake.
I know, it's too much. Have you ever come across, a friend of mine had some really bizarre experiences, and I call them waking dreams, which are bizarre outer experiences that are trying to tell you something about subconscious or whatever. But more than that, she had an experience where she was scouting for a film, and she went to 2 hotspots on the planet, and one of them was Marrakesh. Was that the one that just had the massive earthquake? I think Marrakesh. I think it was Marrakesh. Sure. Was it? But anyway, it was. I think it was Marrakesh, and she was just the day before she left, and she scouted, and she saw this accident on the road. A woman maybe had died, and then she got her plane home, and then the next day this earthquake happened, and she thought, oh my God. And then the next episode after that was scouting Israel, and days later, over, and she couldn't believe it. And so she's kind of and I know someone else who was in 9/11, a friend I play hockey with, and he actually lived through 9/11. He was expulsed from the building, and those, I don't know if you ever saw the film Fearless with Jeff Bridges, where he survives a plane crash and wonders why the hell he's alive. So it's kind of like, how do you help a person deal with, I guess, what we call survivor's guilt? And is that I'm sure it comes up in the dreams, but apart from dreams, I think
it's one that it's an interesting, because anybody who goes through anything shitty, it always has, not always, but almost always has some variation on.
Or you escape it like this, exactly. That's what really makes you feel, wow, I'm thankful to be alive, but here it is twice in a row. What the heck's the message here?
Yes. And we're wanting control, aren't we? I mean, whether it's you've been through the trauma yourself or you've escaped it, survivor guilt is so common. And one thought is, this is our way of thinking that somehow I'm involved. And if I'm involved, that gives me control over the uncontrollable. Because it's one of the hardest things for us to take in life, that shit happens that we can do nothing about.
It's fascinating. She told me a repercussion from this is she has to watch visceral news. She has to see tough news. She has to watch it. She has to be present I guess, as an after effect.
Mhm.
That's to watch the news, which is pretty much horrible most of the time.
Yeah.
And this helps, I guess, helps her feel like she's participating, like you said.
Well, participating and probably also
Yeah, just feeling
toning,
responsible.
like
Yeah,
yes, yeah, yeah. Tough one, eh?
yeah.
But life is, I mean, one of the things I love about dreams is that they make you aware of mystery. And
Absolutely.
moments like this, and when you're awake too, make you aware of mystery, and that the world is so much more complicated than we realize.
Yeah.
And certainly
Boy.
certain kinds of dreams. And when I study dreams, I would just be privileged to hear from others these amazing dreams that just get you stopping, realizing that the world is a whole lot more complicated than we know. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But let's actually cycle back to the nightmare thing, because should you interpret it? If someone's able to be playful, why not? I mean, these are dreams that are telling you something, right? By definition. But if they're upsetting you, and when you're awake, you can't control that upset, then it's like, this is not helping. So then I like to give people permission to just shut the dream down for a time, all of their dreams. So so you can, by ignoring them, I'll tell people, I don't want you writing a diary, don't want you thinking about them, don't want you talking about them, until you can be more in control of your reaction. And then we also look at the reaction. Why is this upsetting you so much? And you saw in that little film clip, people going, sort of like, they were implying, like, who am I that I can have this monster head in my hand?
I know. He had the most outrageous dreams, but he was actually on a medication at the time. You know how nicotine patches can take your dreams and make them erratic?
People have attitudes that they just need, like, no, this doesn't mean you're an awful person. No, this doesn't mean you're an evil person. No, this doesn't mean that, and if they're worried about this foretelling the future, then we deal with that. Like, especially if they're afraid that they're going to have if they have a dream of someone. Or one woman had a dream that she called me about, where she dreamt that she was in a car with her 4-year-old daughter, but she had no daughter. And they were in a car, and then they got out of the car and they looked back, and there was tombstones. So she now had a 4-year-old daughter in real life. And she had, after that dream, she never drove a car again.
Wow.
Because she believed it was foretelling the future and that she was going to die in a car accident. Now she had a 4-year-old daughter. She had a new man she just met. He wanted the three of them to go away on a driving weekend trip. And so she called me, like, from the US. Wow. She was calling so we had a conversation, and one of the things I said to her is, well, one of the things we know for sure, we're all going to die. So what has the dream told you that you don't already know? As you commented, at times I get a little, maybe sometimes too playful, but I thought you need to face this. And so I said, okay, you're going to want to take precautions, seatbelts, how safe a driver is this guy? Take reasonable precautions. And then I talked to her about how dreams usually are symbolic. They're usually symbolic.
Yeah.
So we had one conversation. So, and then I don't hear anything more. A year later, she calls me to say that, first of all, she opens up with, I want you to know the dream came true. And I thought, what? We're talking right now. How is that possible?
Really? Unless I'm dreaming.
She said, yes, that weekend, I went away on that weekend. That very day I got in a car, went on that weekend, and my life changed, and my old life died.
Wow.
And now we're getting married, and I'm living happily ever after.
Oh, so lovely. That's amazing, lovely? Eh?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, a new life. That's so sweet.
So changing the way people think about dreams, if they can get comfortable, then go back and start interpreting those nightmares and playing with them. But other than that, let's just shut them down for a while until you can get better control over your reactions.
Yeah. What do you love about dreams the most? I think you touched on a lot of it.
Yeah, but things that, first of all, it's the one thing that's the closest thing to what we do just ourselves. When I'm awake, everything, my thoughts, my actions are shaped by my world. Yeah. And even my dreams are actually, but less so. So the one place where I'm more truly myself. I love the way that we just let go of the constraints of reality, and we can do all kinds of weird and wonderful things in the dream. We can try out new behaviors. We can face monsters. without, and we can think through images and actions, which allows other ways of thinking than when we're awake and we think through words. Words put us in tracks. Dreams allow us to expand and try out silly, impossible things, but we can do it while we're awake, while we're asleep. And one of the other things I like, which goes against what a lot of people feel, I love that dreams are mostly uncontrollable.
Yeah,
because
totally.
when
You allow
we're
yourself.
yeah, it's because when we're awake, maybe it's because I always am getting my ducks lined up and my schedule lined up, and so when I'm dreaming, and I do occasionally have dreams that I control, but I, for one, don't seek those. And I caution people about seeking them outside, unless they're a part of a spiritual tradition. That makes that part of that tradition. But to just sort of do it as a hobby, for one thing, it can come back and bite you. So I've had some people with nightmares practice dream control so they can control the nightmares.
You mean going back into the dream and readjusting the story? Yeah, I've heard of that. I've never really been able to do it either.
I actually haven't been able. I have been able to do it spontaneously, but they nurture that, and then they are able to control their nightmares. But then, something that happens fairly often is suddenly the dream goes bad, and they have horrible nightmares, completely uncontrollable, and it's as if the dream pushed back. Now, in spiritual traditions that work with dream control, they're familiar with this phenomena. They have a way of mentoring you through it. But you think of the average person who's not in a spiritual tradition, they've just read of how cool it is to control your dreams, and they use some technique to do that, and then suddenly it goes bad on them. And you're stealing this one time when you can be footloose, fancy-free, let the oddest things happen and just let it happen.
I had a great metaphor experience with that, and it was getting blood tests for cholesterol. In the old days, we had to fast for like whatever hours. So I would wake up, and then the appointment was at 11 a.m. or 12, and I haven't eaten, and my blood sugar is really low, right? So the first time I fainted, it was like,
wow.
And they wake me up, and I thought, that was horrible. But it wasn't as horrible as when I went the second time, a year or so later, I do it. And again, it's not like 9 a.m. It's a little later in the day or in the morning. And I'm paranoid now because I think it's going to happen, right? So I'm bringing it on psychologically. And I start to faint, but I fight it. And I swear, Kathy, it was like I was on a drug. I was in another limbo. I was trying to control it. It was just like the freakiest, hellish thing. And it was such a great metaphor for, if you're gonna faint, just faint, don't fight it. You're gonna really have a shitty experience if you fight it. So that's kind of similar to trying to control a nightmare. It was just
I think it's fine in a nightmare to get playful, say to yourself, stop, turn around, do something different. But that's our hyper control thing that people seem to value. And I thought, why? Life is full of control. Why can't we just let this experience be what it's going to be for us? I had
a nice interpretation. There was another woman who was one of the three analysts and Donus people in the dreams, Barb Alport, and I'm going to be talking to her soon about waking dreams because we were both sort of into that. So, but she gave me a great interpretation of a waking dream years ago, which kind of harkens back to what you said earlier about digging too much into things. And she broke this side mirror on her car, and she thought, she's always into an onerology or interpreting a dream, or at least seeing the significance. And she said, "What does that mean? What is that trying to tell me? Where's the waking dream here?" And at the time she was in therapy, and she was really digging into her past. And what she got was from this, it was saying, stop looking behind, stop looking behind.
I love it.
It's a nice meta, a nice statement that solidified, I got to stop digging so deep into the past. I need to take a break from the therapy right now because it's really messing with me. And I had an amazing one at the bank. I was at the bank at a teller, and the sun just came in. The bank and the teller, I'm at the bank, and there's this dog next to us. And he jumps up on the counter, and the tellers go, oh, isn't he cute? It's kind of a lassie kind of dog. And I reached down. I made sure I put my hand down, not like that, because they get freaked out. Looks like you're gonna hit them from there. And so he snips my finger, and I go, wow. And I said, is that a rescue dog? He says, yeah, it is. I said, oh, wow, better watch it around children or whatever. But he might have seen, I might have hearkened back a man with a beard who abused him. I don't know. But I went away from that experience. I thought, what is that trying to tell me? What's the waking dream here? To me, this dog was really, really friendly. And then he changed. So what is the two-faced? Why is this being so two-faced? Why is it being two-faced? Then I thought, okay, who in my life is being two-faced? Who in my life is two-faced? And then I did a little meditation on it, contemplation, and it came back, and I said, who in my life is being two-faced? And immediately came back out of the blue, you are, Michael. And I thought, wow, what? And I had been going through an experience with a person who I wanted validation. I wanted confirmation of something I had given them, and it hadn't come. And I was working with them at the time, and I was pissed. I was pissed about it. I was subconsciously, I wasn't expressing it, and it was, that leads to like, passive aggressive behavior. And there was this anger in me that I wasn't facing, and I was being two-faced. I was being, oh, that's lovely. And it was really cool. And later I approached the person, and I stated what I was feeling, and it worked its way out. But yeah, it was such a great example of a waking dream, how little bizarre experiences in your life are trying to tell you something. What do you think is the main purpose behind dreams? I guess you've covered a lot of it.
Yes, I have in a sense, but I guess one of the things we haven't talked about is that they are particularly well suited for processing emotion, because and for processing things we neglect, and often what we neglect during the day is emotion. But they are, dreams sort of, it's like they pick up the slack, the stuff that we overlooked. It can be innocuous. I remember once having this dream of these gorgeous, beautiful fish flying by in the air. Wow. And I thought, wow. I woke up in the morning and I told my husband that. And he said, I know where those are. You saw them last night. I said, what are you talking about? He said, they were in the store window you were looking at. And I said, no, they weren't.
Really?
Yes, they were. And he'll show you. And we went for a walk the next evening. And sure enough, there they were in the corner. And I'd been so busy looking at something else. I guess part of me really liked those fish. So in the dream, it was like you missed the fish. Wow. But, so it could be something as innocent as that, but it also can be, the emotions. Yeah, we've talked about, the anger that you're ignoring. It could be the joy. We're out of the country right now, and having it gives me more time to do the things I want to do. Because it's just less to attend to. And so it's also become kind of a retreat time. And so I've been doing a lot of reflection, and by day sort of turning over I'm in a time of transition. So at night, what has been interesting is my dreams, because my dreams usually aren't pleasant, but my dreams have almost every night been really lovely. And it's like, I haven't had time to notice the happy feelings during the day because I'm busy looking at the stuff I need to think through. And so the dream picks up the positive. Often it's the other way around. We get about our life, we're busy doing things. And then there's things about ourselves we don't notice, like what you just mentioned. You might have picked that up in a night dream. Thoughts we've had, or something we've noticed about a friend that's a little off. I remember once dreaming that a friend was really ill, and then the next day she wasn't at work. We didn't see her for a month. And I obviously was picking out, and she was very ill. I hadn't noticed it, but there must have been little signs. You don't get that sick like that, right? Yeah. So there had been signs that I was seeing in her face that I didn't notice, but the dream picked it up. So dreams allow us to process the things we actively avoid, or the things we've just missed by chance. And that's, and they're particularly good at that because they're not thoughts in words that follow a line. The mere fact that it's imagery and action allows our mind to flit around and catch those things that we've missed during the day.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, there was something but oh, I know. We oh, it's just the tip of the iceberg and I can't grasp it all. I like how our conversation has come and gone like dreams.
Yes.
I love how they evaporate if you don't pay attention to them, like, or
It's
write
true.
them down or record them on your phone. It's just like they're gone within a minute. So you're traveling in Portugal, right? You're wintering in Portugal right now?
Portugal right now, yes,
Nice.
yeah.
Very
The
nice.
island of Madeira, it's a lovely place, yeah.
Lovely.
And hey, I'm having great dreams, so seems to be a good place. Yeah, very, very
Lovely.
nice. Well,
Excellent.
it has been lovely talking to you, especially after the sort of 30-year revisiting. And
I
as I
know,
said,
eh?
to realize I hadn't connected the dots, that basically I left dream research very shortly after that conversation.
Wow.
And it was a real, it was a small death for me, because I loved studying it.
I thought of, I know what I want to say.
Yes.
I wonder if you've had any dreams with deceased loved ones, and if there's been any poignant ones.
Yes, yes. Well, because first of all, I got to say, when you said, what do you love about dreams? The work we've done, we being me, my students, including especially Joshua Black, it has been amazing to study grief dreams, because people don't talk about these dreams very much, and they usually.
Yeah,
I'll give you an exception to the
You
rule.
mentioned
They're
Joshua
often-
Black. Maybe you should give him an introduction. He is
Yeah.
a specialist in this.
He's a
got
specialist
his
now.
doctorate in it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a doctorate, and he
Got a nice
specializes
podcast.
in grief and grief dreams. He sort of started from his research. We were studying dreams, both of partner loss, but pet loss, miscarriages.
Yeah, that's
People,
big.
it was big, because people
Yeah.
don't get to talk about these losses, and they
Mhm.
sure don't get to talk about dreams of the losses.
Yeah.
And the dreams again show the reality. So when people were dreaming about a spouse or a pet, they usually dream. Sometimes they have lovely interactions. It's like they're continuing the relationship.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like they're revisiting past actions. In the case of miscarriages, they often would dream about, they'd have traumatic dreams sometimes about the miscarriage, but they'd also have dreams with the child as a baby, or the child as a toddler.
Oh,
Sometimes
lovely.
dreams as a teenager.
Wow.
And so those dreams, so with the pet loss, with the partner loss, you lost a history.
Yeah.
So
totally.
the dream is trying to grapple with that and continue the history. With the loss of a baby, it is a loss of a future.
Yeah.
And so the dreams are allowing them to experience that future. And what's amazing is that most of those dreams, not most of those dreams are positive. Even if they're negative, they often have positive moments. So we're seeing, following trauma, dreams are usually horrible, but following grief, many of these dreams are beautiful dreams.
Yeah.
Some aren't, but a lot of dreams are beautiful dreams. The one I had, the big one I had that you and I chatted briefly about before, wasn't so positive. It was, and the backdrop was when my great grandmother died, who I was not very close to. And she was a big smoker. She was a real feisty character, and she kept her house at like 100 degrees. And when she died, I was sleeping in residence at university in undergrad, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and my room was oppressively hot and filled with smoke.
Wow.
And I went, what? And then the thought came, and I thought, Gran's dead.
Wow.
And then suddenly the smoke went, the room was normal temperature, and I rolled over and went back to sleep. Amazing. And my mother called me about 6 hours later, woke me up, said, oh, your great grandmother died. I said, I know, hung up and went back to sleep.
That's cool. I got the message.
With the insensitivity that only a late adolescent can do, right? But I then assumed that every time anybody died, because I wasn't that close to that grandmother, that, I would know. And I would know.
Yeah.
So when my grandmother, who I was close to, died, I didn't know in advance. But the second night, I had a nightmare. Oh. And in the dream, I was at her funeral. And it was actually lovely. Everybody's mingling and talking. Half the people were dead, half the people were alive. They all looked alive, but somehow you knew which ones were already dead and which ones were alive. But everybody's mingling and visiting and having a great time. And then we sat down for the service, and I'm in the front row, and suddenly I look, and my grandmother's beside me, and she's in agony. And she's staring at me in agony. She's clutching at me, and I woke up. I was inconsolable because of that great grandmother experience. I assumed this dream was real, and that somehow I now had an insight into some awful state that my grandmother was in. And for a couple of days, I was truly inconsolable. My husband didn't know what to do with me. I got on, I went to school. I was in graduate school at the time, but I was just shattered. And angry. Oh, I was so angry because I was just starting to be religious. My grandmother had been very religious. And I thought, how could you do this to her, God, given she was such a devoted woman? And then I had this moment, and I remember exactly where I was. I got out of the car, I was going to class, crossing the busy street, and I had stopped for the traffic to clear. And I suddenly said to myself, I thought, okay, there's two possibilities here. The dream is right, and everything you've been told about God is wrong. Or the dream is a lie, and everything that thousands of years of history would say about God is true. Who are you going to vote for, Kathy? One dream or thousands of years of human experience? Experience that is built up despite the horrors that humans have experienced. And yet, despite that, and I thought, the dream's got to be a lie. And the moment I thought that, and it was sort of a decision from the outside, there was this release, and the pain was gone. And I had this, when you talk about waking dreams, I had this hint of a whisper from my grandmother of, I'm fine.
Oh, that's sweet.
It was just beautiful. This hint. So it's, as I say with dreams, the downside of dreams, they lack volume control.
Yeah, that's a great line. I heard you say that recently. That's such a great line.
Yeah, you
can
lack
volume control.
You can have big dreams about little things. You can have tiny whisper dreams about really important things. So, and it's easy to be overwhelmed by a dream and read too much into a dream. So we still have brains to think with. Waking mind, dreaming mind work together. And when I said to you that over the course of my life, it's like in the early part of my life, I gave a little bit too much to the dreaming mind. And then in the middle years, probably a little too much neglect and in favor of the rational mind, as I did the science thing and built the career up. And especially as I was studying things that I wasn't as interested in studying, but I felt I had to study, so a real science mind. And now I'm sort of feeling like I'm more of a sweet spot where both have there. So when I'm awake, I treasure the world and the living in the world and the smells and the tastes and the tiny details. We have little wee ants in this apartment. Can't bring ourselves to kill those little creatures. They don't bother us. They don't get in our clothes. And I just love watching them in their intricate little ways. Never would have even noticed them in my youth. But when I dream, let the dreams be. When I wake up, I just let them develop, and I enjoy them for a bit. Or even if they're unpleasant, I go, okay, where have I felt that way during the day? I just you look, like when you look at art in an art gallery, some people break it apart into pieces. Other times you just really look at it and let it be. That's what I tend to do with my dreams now. Different times of life, you do different things with dreams, and it's all what it should be for the time.
Beautiful. I had something to say, but I lost it.
Gee, I don't know what that's like. I've never.
It was great. Anyway, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. I think we covered a lot.
We covered a lot. I really enjoyed talking with you.
We covered a lot and
30 years.
A tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. And I love that title because it's my out that I may not always cover everything in my podcast. But we cover the tip of the iceberg. When it comes to nightmares, chasing. So we covered a lot.
It's great.
That's
Lovely
great. Oh, I
talking
know
to
what
you.
I was going to say one more time when it came back. Is your technique of what you're observing is such a great technique to increase your recall in the dream.
Yeah.
By observing everything in the daylight and really getting into the moment.
Yes.
You will take that into the dream state and you'll have a better recall. When
You mentioned that in one of your
when you're
earlier
really,
episodes.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Thought,
Anyway,
I
I'm
hadn't
being
heard that
redundant
before,
now.
and good things,
No.
important things are worth saying more
Yeah,
than
it
once.
is.
People might forget, you know.
Yeah, I wonder how that happens. Okay, thanks so much. And
Okay.
are you still teaching?
No,
You're
now
retired. You look so young.
now I'm writing,
Oh yeah, that's right.
and really sort of trying to develop that career now. And
What are some of the
anyway,
subjects you're working on? Do you want to share?
The one book that I just wrote, finished up, was the history of the memory wars, which is the battle that happened in the 90s over what to make of memories of sexual abuse, whether they were false memories, fantasies, or were they real. And that was just a horrible decade to live through. So I've written a memoir about that, but I also play it out. So we get at war with ourselves over our memories. We get at war with our friends and family over our memories. So the wars that we have around memory, but especially centered on that particular historical event when society didn't want to believe abuse existed. And now I'm working on a different kind of, so almost a spiritual memoir. Happens to have war in the title again, War Pony, and it's only by chance, because that was his name. So it's a memoir of a very remarkable cat that we lived with. It is not a cute cat story because he was not even cute, but he was a cat, a feral cat through whom I learned about learning how to trust after betrayal, how to develop faith after betrayal.
Like
so it's a kind of a spiritual memoir, so I'm enjoying that.
Like the rescue dog and that. Really triggered my insight. Yeah, Kathy, I would just want to present you with a little gift from myself and Tip of the Iceberg podcast. And it's this great, my friend Chris Parsons, and I give a shout out to his company. It's called the Knighthood. And it's a great little thing when you sleep through the day, or you have you work nights. It's an amazing gift. And it's a black, really nice black double knitted knighthood that you can wear at night. And it's just a beautiful little thing, and you can adjust it on your head, and it's an amazing it's an amazing thing for sleeping in light, so you can keep your melatonin. and
that's wonderful.
His product is called Knighthood.
I love the play on words. That's so clever.
Yeah, isn't it good? NITE hood.
Yeah.
Sleep better, nod off quickly. Form fitting, moves with you. Elegant sleep mask, adjustable, made in Canada for exquisite snoozle and dreamies.
Wow, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, sleepy at knighthood.com. NITEHOOD.com. So if you're interested in picking that up, anyone on the podcast, it's sleepy at knighthood.com. You can order them there. Yeah, it's a great little gift for any time, especially for people who want to sleep through the daytime, which I do a lot. When I work in the film industry, it's
I bet
crazy hours and you don't get much sleep. Do you want to give a shout out to anything or anyone? Any thanks to people that who inspired you? That's what I want to know. Who inspired you to go into psychology?
Oh my goodness. It's
other than your own dreams.
Other than my own dreams. I mean, I had such wonderful, I went to Brock as an undergraduate, had such wonderful faculty there. And Robert Ogilvie and Harry Hunt were two people that got me into sleep and dream studies. So, those are where people were wonderfully foundational. And then there's just this whole community of dream researchers and dreamers. It's amazing. The International Association for Study of Dreams, delightful organization that brings together artists and researchers. And it's just, it's been a lovely community to be associated with.
What would that website look like if anyone wanted to get in touch with that group?
It's easy to find. So International Association for the Study of Dreams.
Okay.
Any combination of those words will bring it up pretty quickly. Sure. So IASD, I think .org, but if just Google the International Association for the Study of Dreams, and you should be able to find it. It's a great group.
Yeah, thank you. You gave me a lot of tips on people that are involved in that and all their different professional side of dreams that they work in. So I may be interviewing some of them in the near future as well. Anyway, thank you, Kathy. It was really great. And so nice to see you. Have a happy holiday. And thanks again for everything. Okay.
Thanks. Lovely to talk to you. Yeah. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to A Lifelong Passion for Dreams, featuring Dr. Kathy Belicki, Professor of Psychology Emeritus at Brock University in St. Catharines, Ontario. More information on Kathy can be found at the website brocku.ca, brocku.ca, and by searching her name, Dr. Kathy Belicki. Kathy with a K, last name Belicki. She is the author of the publications The Memory Wars and War Pony. If you're interested in purchasing a knighthood mentioned today and gifted to Kathy by Tip of the Iceberg for all those folks who like to sleep through the daylight or just to have a great warm hoodie for sleeping in cool rooms, you can find the knighthood at the website knighthood.com, NITEHOOD.com. I'm Michael Patrick O'Hara. Thanks for joining us today. Enjoy your dreams, day or night. Take care. This has been a Waking Dream production. Copyright 2024.